Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise and welcome to 5 wacky but fun APS shells. Now before we get into it today, a little bit of news and background to this video. Firstly, I was meaning to plan something a bit longer, a bit more dramatic, like a Lights Wanted, a Cybercraft review, a campaign episode. Anyway, a longer, more planned out video. I am knackered today. I've had a stressful morning, I didn't feel up to it, and rather than inflict an hour-long, less than good video on you lovely people, I'm gonna make something that I've been meaning to do for a while, just for fun, and so here it is. And, well, here it is. The second bit of news is, I'm on Patreon now, so if you have spare change lying around, and if you appreciate what I do and the content I make, feel free to go over there and pledge your support. It'll be very helpful, and it'll help me get motivated the next time I want to just cop out and make a shorter video. I didn't mean for it to sound like that, but anyway. So, links in the description, go for it. I'm not gonna go on too long about it. Okay, so on to the video itself. So, advanced cannons. Generally seems to be the most effective weapon system in the game from the depths, and also possibly people's favorite. Like, people use these all the time, like the designs I've seen, advanced cannons almost always feature in some way, shape, or form, simply because they're the most versatile weapon system in the game. They're overall the strongest. They do the most damage out of anything if you set them up right, and they're very customizable. So that's all reasons to use them. And an awful lot of my time, admittedly, in From the Depths is like, I've spent over 1,000 hours playing this game. A lot of it is just on platforms like this, just building turrets and testing them out, testing different ammunition types, testing just different sizes of turret, width, height, and stuff like that. And during all that testing, I found some shells that aren't really effective, per se, if you're being perfectly honest, but they are fun, and they do have their uses, and so here are 5 of them. And the first one is a weird one. So we have these turrets here, which are all color coordinated. The first one is Penetration Depth Flak. Now, that's a bit weird. It is a weird shell. This is something that, who was it? One of my regular people on the Discord server was mucking around with at one point. This is an interesting shell, because flak isn't what you usually use to put in a pen depth shell, because here's the shell, by the way. It's 500 meters... 500 millimeters in gauge, and it is 6 meters long, or almost 6 meters long, and it's just pretty basic. Lots of gunpowder, penetration depth view set to 5 meters, because that's a lot of kinetic damage down there, and base bleeder, and a solid warhead body, just for bit of extra KD, and an AP capped head for armor penetration and maximum KD, and flak warheads. Now, if you really want an effective penetration depth shell, which arguably there's not much point in doing because shields hard counter these things, but if they hit hull, they really do a lot of work. They're much better. It's better at getting through spaced armor than heat is, and it's better at getting through really thick armor than Hesh is, so it definitely has a role. But why would you use flak with it? And the answer to that is flak makes a very pretty big explosion effect, so that's basically it. Also, that massive radius means that when you run into things like Onyx Watch ships, which have very large gaps inside them, it's entirely possible for penetration depth shells to get all the way inside and explode in the same compartment as something vital like engines or laser systems or something like that, and then not damage them just because the radius isn't big enough. This doesn't have that problem. Honestly, what really works well is a hybrid of flak and frag, or a hybrid of flak and high explosive, because that means max damage and also max radius. So we're just going to use this Marauder as a testing dummy. So you see, not a lot of damage on these shells, but they do get right in there. They get right in deep. Fortunately, they also miss. So let's do this, and let's aim straight for the AI. That didn't work so well. God, that's a really inaccurate gun. Oh well. Or maybe it bounced, I don't know. But yeah, this is a fun shell simply because, I'll show you another thing you can do. Boop, and boop, and boop, boop, boop. One thing that it just occurred to me that pen depth Flak is good at is that it's a good testing shell for penetration depth shells, because you can see exactly, no matter how big the target is, you can see exactly where the shell is detonating. So in here, it's detonating right at the center, here. It's about, where was it? About... there. So you can just quickly see from the outside, like, it's detonating right in the middle of this king state. So already you can tell, aha, the KD on this is great. And think, yeah, it's actually, wow, it hit engines. So yeah, it's not doing a hell of a lot of damage. Like, penetration depth, high explosive, or frag, definitely does that better, but, this has it use it also, it's really fun. It's a fun shell. See, remember that video games, like, you are meant to occasionally have fun in them. You're not meant to min-max everything all the time. This shell's definitely like that. So, there's the first shell. Penetration depth Flak. Now, the next one, and this is one of my personal favorites. Let's spawn in... Let's spawn in something a little bit different. Let's spawn in a stockade. Excuse you, are you going to hit me? You are. You bastard. Okay, so... pretending that didn't happen for a second, you gotta be quick. You gotta be very quick. If you want to stop things doing that when you're testing them. Boop. Okay. So... oh, gosh, dang it. Let's just let you load for a second. So, what is this? This is similar, same gauge, same length, so it's hollow point EMP. Now, the reason I came up with this a while ago, I didn't nick this from anybody else for once in my life, but this came about when I was thinking, so hollow point is a really good head for a shell, because lots of thump damage, it's great at, like, peeling armor off layer by layer. And APS EMP isn't that great simply because it doesn't synergize well with anything, because it needs to touch the hull in order to do stuff. And if you put an inertial fuse on it, it detonates against shields, it does nothing, so that's not so good. And then the connection was made in my brain, which I occasionally use, is like, hang on, hollow point is only really useful if it hits the hull of a ship or a craft. EMP is also only useful if it hits the hull of a craft, unless you're using a disruptor conduit warhead. So this thing over here, this thing, and so I put the two together, and the thing works a lot better than you might think, because 2,400 EMP strength is not a lot. That's like, I'm trying to think. That's less than 1 EMP. No. I think that is just over 1 EMP a segment on a medium-sized missile. So it's not great. It's not really powerful. APS generally isn't the best thing for EMP. But this is a fun shell to use, because if you do this, it's a double whammy in that it peels off armor like it's not even there. And it has a pretty significant EMP jolt. And remember, like, what you can do instead of having one massive EMP surge is just have something that scatters EMP surges all over the thing. And advanced cannons are actually pretty good at that. And see, it can delete turrets quite nicely. In fact, that's something that it's actually really good at. So if I stop that right now. So here we have a cram turret. And you see in here, there is explosive pellets. Now, the weird thing about cram explosive pellets is that they're vulnerable to EMP. I have no idea why this is, but you can see here that EMP susceptibility is 20%, protective drainage is 10. So these things, because they have so little health, they get destroyed by EMP really easily. and they do just enough explosive damage when they get destroyed to set off other high explosive pellets and to destroy autoloaders. So what this means is that when you get EMP on a cram turret that isn't properly shielded, I think, yeah, that's the right turret. Hopefully this will work. It will fry the explosive pellets, assuming that they're not spaced out right. This is why when you're building cram cannons, it's generally a good idea to space out your explosive pellets and to actually sandwich them between different kinds of pellets. So you don't just have a whole line of explosive pellets all in a row, because EMP will do that. And sticking, and particularly advanced cannon EMP, because it comes in at such a low angle, it has a habit of hitting barrels. So if I aim right here, boom, it's flying in at the exact angle to clip barrels off, and because Hollow Point just essentially voids its payload on contact, it doesn't need a fuse or anything like that, that EMP surge will, well, firstly, it'll snip the barrel off completely, and that EMP surge will travel all the way in here and blow up explosive pellets. So this is actually a pretty decent form of ammunition against the Onyx Watch, and against anything that likes to really spam cram turrets. And it's a good support shell, because it peels off armor, and it fries anything electronic. And it also is great against heavy armor, because thump damage ignores armor stacking and hops across multiple blocks, and EMP does 100% damage to heavy armor. So I like this shell. It's if I destroy this quickly, like, I believe I've used it before, so I have used it before actually. So this guy, so this is, well, one of my more recent designs, the Varanus. The Varanus uses this. So if you stop moving for a second, and one of you uses it. It's the other gun. Whoops. Ta-da! 500 meter hollow point shell. Very nice. And it does the job quite well. It synergizes well with other shells. It won't win you the fight on its own, but it's just fun. So that's basically all these shells in a nutshell. They're just fun. They're fun to use. Okay, so shell number 3. And this is, by the way, for this shell and the one I'm about to show you, you can replace the hollow point with a squash head if you want more spalling, well, more fragments, and less thump damage. Just saying that right now. So the next one is hollow point heat. So this is a bit of a derp shell, because this is essentially a somewhat crappy but slightly more versatile Hesh shell. And I know I've triggered some people just by even mentioning that the shell exists. So this is same thing, 500 millimeters, 6 meters long. What this thing does is that it has a lot of thump damage, so it's like any form of big hollow point. It peels armor layers off quite easily, but this secondary charge head, this can still get quite powerful, especially on a shell this big. And the main reason you'd use this is that it's a versatile shell. It's not great at any one thing, but it's overall, like, it gets the job done, because unlike a regular, like, Hesh shell or hollow point shell, well, I say that, like, hollow point high explosive is really good. More on that in another video. But, yeah, so this gets through shields a lot better than regular Hesh does. You could also make it quite fast, which is another advantage. So this thing goes over 500 meters per second. So let's just show that right now with the... So we're out of play, and let's spawn in my least... Well, one of my least favorite craft ever. Hello, where are you? Ah, there you go, the Retaliator. I hate this thing. The Retaliator, it's big, it's spammy, it's laggy, and thankfully the performance multi-threading upgrade means that it doesn't actually crash my game anymore when you pop its turrets. So immediately, like, having heat is a big advantage because it allows it to get in there, allows it to dig in have some fragments, and if it hits the hull, it peels off chunks of armor quite easily. You can see it's not quite hitting the hull, but when it does... Yeah, so that's something like lots of blocks and a hole made already. So let's turn that off. So 1, 2, 3. Let's try and pop this turret right here. Can you try that again, please? You have no excuse. Almost there. Try this. Overpin. Come on. Do it for daddy. Come on. A little bit lower now. Come on. Come on. We all want to see this. Come on. You're penetrating. I know you are. Come on. Wee. Ah, there's a wee air gap in here. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Oh yeah, that was a hull shot. Oh, that'll hurt you. What the hell happened there? Oh, dearie me. Try to get one right in there. Can you do it? So yeah, it's basically just high thump and you know what, let's try here. Oh, whoa, perfect! So yeah, it can do that. If there's any enemy craft stupid enough to have unarmored internal turrets, that's what happens. It does horrible things to engines as well, so if we aim right here, for instance. Almost. Wow, heat streams are really narrow. They need to be bang on target. Seriously? How'd you do that? Come on, fry those engines. We want to do this. Oh, come on. Stop bouncing. I like bouncing. Boing, boing, boing. Yep. That's another thing that heat is fantastic for. Like whether you stick a hollow point hollow point on the front or not, is that they are death to engines. So lovely. So, yeah, that's a shell that I'm particularly fond of. It isn't great. It's better to, if you really are wanting to be serious, it's better just to have a pure, either a pure heat shell, so have a heat head on it because that's more efficient, or just hollow point, high explosive, or Hesh, because this is just a weird hybrid shell that isn't as good, but it is great fun, and it does do the job well enough if that's what you want. So, now moving on, and this is only really a wacky fun shell as of recently with the laser update, because previously this was almost essential for me. I remember one of the first From the Depths videos I ever did was on using smoke, APS smoke. It works a little bit differently now, but it's still kind of fun and kind of useful. So here we have an Alcazar, which is one of them, well, I don't know, it's not one of the most formidable craft in the game, but it is annoying, and it still has a decent LAM system. So, if we get all our previous guns firing at the same time, this is where we learn that APS now gets hard counted by LAM systems. So firing, nope, sorry, those are big shells, and they just get stopped dead. Like, even if I spam a lot more than that, like the LAM system on the Alcazar will get it done. They will destroy them. So now, instead of, because crams can get through LAMs pretty easily now because they have double health, what you have instead is that smoke is now the thing to use when you're using big APS shells. So here we have our belt-fed smoke shell, and this is a bit of a weird shell, 2 gunpowder inertial fuse, smoke warhead, sabot head, because smoke is the one thing that is not affected by, whoops, by the sabot penalty. So every other thing, every other kind of chemical shell, so EMP, high explosive, what was it? Like, so, high explosive, flak, and EMP are all get a severe penalty if you pair them with a sabot head or a sabot body part. Smoke doesn't have that problem. It stays at the same density stacking that it has before, and as of right now, even though each of these little smoke clouds only reduces the power of a laser by 7.5% at 200mm, LAM systems still have the default setting of, LAM's nodes rather, still have the default setting of when they are covered in smoke, they will not fire. And so, as of right now, smoke is still a really good way of shutting down LAM systems, simply because you smother them, and then they do nothing, and then you can ruin their life. And we're making reasonably short work of this Alcazar. Like, these turrets aren't amazing, I kind of made them in a bit of a rush. But yeah, they can do the trick. And so yeah, that's a 4 out of 5. So now I'm going to do this. And now I'm going to spawn in the Alcazar again, because I hate the Alcazar. The Alcazar makes me very mad. And where are you? There you are. What the distance are you? Let's go 1,000 meters out. And let's spawn in the last shell type, or rather the thing you can do with shells. So the great thing about APS and just the whole ammo customization part of it is that you can mix shells as much as you like. You can. The easiest way to do this is just to stick multiple guns in a turret. But you can also do this. So if I go here, no one's firing. Good, good, good. Get you out of the water. So here we have I don't know if this is what the general FTD community calls this or what, but it's what I certainly call the party gun, or the party mix gun. So this is one APS system, one gun, but it's got 4 different shells in it. So if you want to muck about with shells and experiment, and particularly if you have specialized shells that are good at one thing but not necessarily anything else, you can stick them all in one gun. And this is a fun thing to do with shells, because you can mix really meta ones with some not so meta ones, and you can still have a good time with it. And also, if you do what I've done here and stick different colored traces on all these shells, you have a gun that essentially fires skittles. So here we have 4 different kinds of ammunition. They've all been modified to... I've turned down the gunpowder propellant density on, I think, 3 of them, just so they all move at the same speed, important for aiming. And so the first one here is pretty straightforward, 200mm, shaped charge head, inertial fuse, visible tracer. Not a great shell, but still has a very good penetration metric, so it can easily reach through multiple layers of metal and pop vital bits. Then you have their squash head, which is the reason why everything else has been dialed down a bit. Oh my goodness, I could dial it up a bit more. Whoop, no, whoop, okay. Nope, had to get it down there, so just regular squash head. Probably could have done that. And this thing hurts like hell. And then you have a frag head. Frag is just a really meta shell still, especially since shields are terrible. Lots of frags, lots of hurt, and then just a hollow point because I ran out of ideas. Now hollow point isn't exactly great at medium gauge. It's like 2,000 kinetic damage for the hollow point. It isn't much, but it's better than nothing. And I needed to fire a rainbow, so this is what it looks like. So, it is reasonably annoying and difficult to actually get these things firing the way you want them. Because what you need to do in here is you need to be careful about the order you place your loaders and the order you place your ammo inputs. So, it'll cycle through with whatever loaders are placed first. So, say this one was placed first, that one will fire first, this one will place second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So, what you need to do is you can prefab save your butt here, because all these are color-coded. The red ones are squash, the blue ones are hollow point, the yellow ones are heat, and the white ones are frag. Just, prefabs are the way to go. So you place one, set what you want with it, then just make a 1x1x1 prefab, and stick it wherever you want them. So that's the way to do it, and yeah, so this is the party mix shell. This is a fun thing to do. Like, arguably, you could just, like, make just one shell type and stick it in the gun, but you know what? That's not fun. Well, it is fun, but this is also fun. And also, who doesn't like spraying the rainbow at people? Like, you can see, I think, that from here, if you get a blue shell flying in, hollow points, well, the hollow points do stuff, but not much. Arguably could remove them. And, like, Hesh and Heat are great at, like, anything from 200mm up. So, yep, there it goes. So, yeah. Fun. It's all fun in games. Until the Alcazar dies, in which case, it's party time. Gods, I love fun shells. So, let me know in the comments what you consider the most effective APS shell types to be, because I'll happily do a video on that. That'd be really fun as well. I've already got a few ideas for what would be in there, so like hollow point, high explosive, regular heat shells, regular Hesh shells. I think like, yeah, just regular frag shells as well. Like there's just boring meta options for the most part. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you think. And yeah, the Patreon is a thing as well, so go check that out. So, with that, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon if you like. And I will see you next time in From the Depths, whatever topic comes next. Farewell!